So I just played Legend of Zelda and The Wind Waker, and you want to know what the name I could use for it, both figuratively and metaphorically, is watered down. Not just because and that, you know what, pun intended, but not just because it takes place all over Great Sea, which is like a majority of the map, but overall, I've realized the content on it is kind of watered or rinse and repeat. Now, since I'm about to kind of rip on this game, I do actually really want to give credence. Now, other than the ending, I thought the story was pretty good. It was a great post-apocalyptic, Hyrule is buried beneath the sea type story. There's some mystery to it. You're wondering what happened through there. The story just explains itself. By the end of it, there was no stone left unturned. But the one thing I always had an issue with at the ending is when the King of Hyrule lays his hand on the Triforce, why doesn't he ask to be the ruler of Hyrule himself and to vanquish Ganondorf, as well as vanquish the Great Sea? Because that's the whole point. The reason the sea is there is that Ganondorf's there, so if you solve both problems, that's better than living in basically a post-apocalyptic water world. I mean, do you think that the people living on those mountaintops that became the islands eventually would run out of resources and would probably need more land to fill out? I mean, they could use a lot of that stuff that's all over the map. But for the sake of somehow, like, the Wind Waker just wanted to keep that going. Other than that, I actually enjoyed the story. I thought it was a really good conclusion. It didn't seem too crowded. Mainly, obviously, you're basically Link and the King of Red Lions, and you guys are doing your thing. Not too many people enter the storyline at once. There's not too many bad guys. I mean, obviously, there are 6 dungeons, which honestly, they could have had more. But in the grand scheme of things, it felt like it could have been longer than 6 dungeons. And obviously, they could have gotten rid of that Triforce quest and gave us like 2 more. But also, I want to leave this as a side note. I'm actually kind of glad that one part of this content was watered down, and that was the Triforce quest. Now, obviously, in the game, like on the GameCube, you had to get Triforce charts and then find all the Triforce pieces, which was doubly a pain. In this like HD remake, it was just 3 charts, and then you had practically like just a bunch of shards to find via different dungeons, like mini dungeons that tested your metal and kind of put everything together. But it kind of felt like it was too soon to be running through all of these enemies that you had found in the past. Like if it wasn't for the constant gathering of heart pieces and getting the double magic meter and getting all that, it still felt pretty soon. And that leads me into my next point, is that when it came to getting all the upgrades, it really did seem rinse and repeat. You find a shell island in the Great Sea, and then you use one of your contraptions to blast through the barrier that's getting in there. Very underwhelming, but then once you go there, you meet the Great Fairy, they give you an upgrade, and you could basically get all the upgrades done in like 15 minutes tops if you have the Ballad of the Gales. For real, once I got Ballad of the Gales on Wind Waker, it was just way too easy to zip all over the map and find everything. And with a couple help of some online guides, it just felt like the whole thing just started moving really fast versus the slower half of the game. But once it took off, it kind of took off so fast to the point that it kept going, and it was almost over by the time I was really enjoying the game. Nothing against the first half of the game, but the first half of the game just kind of seemed a little underwhelming to me up until Tower of the Gods. And then up until the second Forsaken Fortress visit, I kind of felt like that's when it just finally took off. And like I said, you had side quests, 2 dungeons, and then a Triforce quest, and then the finale. Now the finale was quite exciting. Then once you were able to actually grasp the weight of what was at stake, what was going down. But overall, that was the feeling of the game that I really got, is that just the content just seemed repetitive to me. It just kind of seemed to go in phases. Now, I'm not saying that it was all the same. There was some diversity when it came to the environments, especially when it came to getting into the dungeons. But like literally the world was watered down, and figuratively too, because you had some small islands around there. Now, obviously, if I'm correct on my history of this game, this game was rushed in development, and they did have in mind that they were going to put an entire underworld of Hyrule there, which if they were actually going to go do that, I really wish they would have pushed it back a little bit so you had more room to explore, or they could expand, because that would have been a really cool way of fixing this problem, because I don't want to just complain about the bad parts about this game that I realized while I played it, because not all of it's totally bad, but if I want to fix the bad parts and I could go back and do like a mock development of this game, I would take more time to go over the land of Hyrule, make more areas to go through, and then, even then, maybe add a couple more dungeons that took place in the land of Hyrule to add a little bit of diversity so Link could actually explore the older world and get to know something about it canonically that fit into the Wind Waker. Because yes, the Wind Waker did have a completely different feel than Ocarina of Time. Obviously, the models were different. Obviously, everything else was different, and I applaud them for doing that. But it would have just been nice to see it all through the Wind Waker lens rather than the Ocarina of Time lens. But you know what? It is what it is. I'm not saying that this game was totally bad, because when I did have fun, like I said, I had fun playing it, but I also can very well see why Zelda fans did not like it. Now, maybe it is just me becoming more cynical about games, because obviously I very rarely have anything to say about a game, and I get accused a lot of the time about sugarcoating everything and always looking on the bright side, which I get it. Toxic positivity. I look at the game developers now and see how many corners they cut, and maybe I shouldn't have given them so much leeway in the past, because everything has a cause and effect, and maybe what caused this kind of watering down in modern games is basically it's the effect of what happened in the past when I was like willing to accept anything. Obviously, there's a lot of people who really just love to dunk all over this game and throw all the baby with the bathwater out the window. I call it throwing the Mulgera out with the bathwater, because I think Mulgera was definitely the diamond in the rough in this game. But altogether, I can honestly acknowledge the criticisms of what this game fell short on, but also I acknowledge what it really succeeded on, and it did actually give a really good message of letting go of the past and pushing forward and allowing the past to sit where it's at and looking towards the future. And I honestly think that's a very valuable lesson. But sometimes I feel like it gets, buried under a whole lot of watered downness of the content. But you know what? It is in the past, and although the game's already made, it's all said and done, I can say as many flaws as are apparent in this game, I will be real and say that I do appreciate this for what it's worth. It does represent kind of a low point in 3D Zelda history, but even in the lowest point of Zelda's, there's still some stuff to salvage. And I think what that plays into is that this is a very valuable franchise. Even its weakest link, that's another pun intended, is definitely a really strong one. But that's what I got to say. I hope any of you guys want to play it now and maybe just appreciate what the game did have to offer. But other than that, man, going back, getting inspired to go back and play this game and really try to see what it was about, or try to get a modern feel that maybe I missed a tone or something when I was a kid playing this game. But really getting to go back and see what it was all about through first person was amazing. And you know what I could say? I could say I give this game at least like a C+. Not perfect, not completely bad, but it's definitely not like Twilight Princess, which is probably what I'm going to be playing next, which probably has more going on for it. But that's what I got to say. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out. Later.